Hello, my name is Julie, and today I'm going to be exploring 3 Goodreads alternatives. So, I have been a Goodreads user since 2013. I was 12 years old, and I am now 24. And I, as all Goodreads users have noticed, am disappointed in the fact that Goodreads has not updated their website in like 10 years. Last month, they rolled out their first update in years, and the website looks no different. They changed 3 or 4 things that don't matter, and the only thing that they really did of value was return something that they had taken away previously. And also, Goodreads is owned by Amazon, even though I don't have to pay for Goodreads. So there are a lot of people who are out there looking for an alternative to Goodreads that is going to fill in the things that Goodreads isn't doing. The most well-known grievance that users have had against Goodreads since its inception is the 5-star scale that they do not allow you to do half stars on. And all 3 of these things that I'm going to be testing out today have half stars. I decided for most of July, I was going to test out 3 different alternatives. So I picked the 3 that I personally hear the most about, and I am going to give you a tour of their website. I'm gonna give a lot of constructive criticism, and ultimately, I'm gonna tell you what type of reader I think is good for each of these different services. While I do have critiques of all of these websites, I do think all of them are for somebody and that they all do the job. I did not go into this challenge hoping to be persuaded away from using Goodreads entirely. I was more looking for something that I could be using in addition to Goodreads. So let's find out what our 3 competitors are. The first of these is Fable, which currently has 3 million users. This is solely an app. While there is a website, it is only used to promote the app and allow you to do one function of the app, which I'll talk about. Notable thing about Fable is that a couple months ago, it was bought out by Everand, which is an Audible competitor. It was founded in 2021 by Suri Warrior, who, fun fact, was formerly CTO of Cisco, of Motorola, and the CEO of an electric car company. What are you doing here? Fable is trying to pitch itself as an all-in-one social media app for readers. Then we're going to go to the oldest of these, and that is Storygraph, which is pitching itself as a place for you to better find books that are suited for you and give you a bunch of stats about your reading. It currently has 4 million users since its founding in 2019 by Nadia Adenao. And Storygraph is both a website and an app. Last up, we are going to do Pagebound, which is pitching itself as a combination between Goodreads and Reddit. There are approximately 25,000 Pagebound users since its start in the fall of 2024, so I don't believe this has even been open for a year. And it was founded by Jennifer Dobach and Lucy Zhao. Pagebound, as of the filming of this intro, is currently just a website, but they have been working on an app, and they announced earlier this week that they are hoping to apply for placement in app stores next week. So I can't tell you anything about the app. I'm sure it's going to function just the same as the website. Full transparency, I am filming this intro and outro in September, but almost all of the research I did for this is in July. So sometimes I am going to come in, or I'm going to pop text on the screen of more clarification of what I found at the time. So let's get into my tours and testing of the websites.
Yesterday was my first day using Fable. You can import all of your information from Goodreads, and I have done that. It does not permanently attach your Goodreads and Fable together. It just does one singular import. So if you were to continue to use Goodreads, and Goodreads is the thing that you're updating, you would have to delete and re-download every single time, which is what I found because maybe a month ago, I imported my Goodreads data. It only takes a couple of minutes. So if you are a person who is only occasionally going to use Fable, that actually it's a good function that it's not like a permanent Goodreads download. The first Goodreads import that I did, it did accurately say how many books I read this year. I was at like 67 at that point. I should be over 70 by now. And it says that I have read 9 books this year. So I actually am going to reattempt the Goodreads upload because they got it right once. It's also marking a lot of books that I had in my secondary TBR shelf read. That's really annoying because I would have to like do everything manually. So the main page that I was looking at, there is the profile page. It gives you a good amount of reading stats. So it's going to tell you like where you are in your goal. It gives you different like graphs and stuff. There's a in beta testing thing that is a reading profile, like trying to guess what yours was. I was some sort of explorer. Basically, it was saying that you read all types of genres, and I'm like, I know, duh. There's also a function on the profile section that is a shelfie and you can pick some books and TV shows, I don't understand, that you like. For the other sections that I've seen, there is the posting section. So you can basically make like a tweet. There is at the top, you can mark that you read a book that day and you can track a reading streak. I'm gonna try to keep up with that, but I read every single day, and honestly, I think I would find that kind of annoying.
Me from the future. Fable is trying to help you create a reading habit by sending you notifications for you to keep up your reading streak. They'll send you one toward the end of the day like, hey, make sure you keep up your reading streak. You can retroactively put in your streak and you can mark what books you read when. However, the thing that I have noticed is that if you currently have a streak running, they will send you notifications. But if you break your streak, they will no longer send you notifications to keep up your streak. I would like to see a way for you to like turn on notifications if you have a streak or not, because I think the people who need it most are the people who want to make a streak, who break it occasionally.
There's a section where you can like find people to follow. There's a notifications hub. I specifically saw that like there was a poll posted in one of my book clubs, and then there's also like a DMing section. So that kind of reminds me of when you open the Goodreads app, that's sort of seeing the posts that your friends have made. And then there is the book club function, which is the reason I joined the app in the first place, and I did it before I wanted to make this video. There's a bunch of book clubs that are on there. You know, anyone, you can make your own book club for free, which should be. You have a dedicated space for each section of the book that you want to chat about. They also have some sort of ebook function in there. I want to find out about that because it actually, if I could sample the ebook on my phone, that actually might make me go pick up a book for a club that I like, but I wasn't sure if I was going to read the book. Before the video is over, I will try to mess around with how the book club functions, like what are the defaults of the book club. I didn't really find myself going in and talking in those chaptered parts. I think if you're an ebook reader, I know you can actually share like your highlights of the books. You can like add quotes that you liked from the book and talk about your reaction of that specific quote. But I basically just ended up making a mini review and putting it in the final section. It doesn't have a way, at least now, for you to meet online. I know Kayla was talking about in a video that she wanted some way to promote or like link people to the fact that they're having a live show, and they don't have that yet. Because I personally have found only having a text-based book club does not encourage people to continue with the book club. They also have this like explore page. You can search for books, but you can also like see a bunch of lists that they have together. I'd like to see how often they have lists together. The tabs and everything are very, very similar to Goodreads. It has a facelift. It functions better as an app because it's designed to be solely an app, while Goodreads is not, and Goodreads has not had an update for a long time. I have a couple of things that I want to figure out. I want to figure out the ebook function. I want to figure out how the book clubs work. I want to figure out how posting works and like friends stuff on there. We'll figure it out. Hello, I have done some more Fabling. Number one, I have set up a test book club to try to figure out how their book club process works. It's actually really super painless. This is me going through and just starting a book club. What's the name of your book club? What type of vibe is your book club? Honestly, the genres that they had on there were pretty limited. It's really cool that they have genres that you can put on there. But like, for example, I was surprised that fantasy romance wasn't on there, but cozy fantasy was, and there wasn't like epic fantasy. I would have looked for more like tags, because they seem to have tags in other places. I would have looked for maybe something that's more of a read along instead of being a book club. It lets you like invite all your friends that you want to join the book club. You start the book club, then you add a book that you want to read. It automatically tags every single chapter, and this is when the ebook stuff starts coming in. So you can see at the beginning, you can see the chapters, and then it gets further enough in the book, things are locked. Not on the app, but on the Fable website, you are actually able to buy ebooks from them. I'm sure their selection is not like, you know, Kindle big, but you can buy ebooks from Fable and read in the app and like do highlights and stuff and share them with people in the club, which I do think is cool. How much would I actually use that? I don't know. But other people, I see that would be very good for discussion. I think that would be really super useful. So that's the book club stuff. Another thing is I finished my first book while using Fable. It took me a minute to figure out how I could change it so that I could mark it as finished, but it's just at that top part there where you normally say, oh, I read this book today. After you say that you've read the book of the day, you can, just like in Goodreads, track your progress and say what part of the book you're at, percentage and page wise, and then you can mark it as read, and from there it starts doing reviews. It allows you to do the quarter stars and you drag it to do it. However, I did not see that you were able to mark it as no stars, which is something that I do, especially when I'm reading something like nonfiction, which I don't read as much. I don't feel as qualified. So a lot of books I just leave as no rating if I just want to abstain from it. You can put it as DNF, and they do have a built-in DNF shelf, unlike Goodreads, which you can do that on Goodreads. Goodreads allows you to add more of those like status shelves. I don't know what they're called. They're shelves where a book can only be in one shelf. So your read, want to read, DNF. If you add one, you can add as many as you like. And then there's ones that are more like tags that you can add as many as you want. I have had a DNF shelf on Goodreads for forever, but this one automatically has that. And then what surprised me, I didn't know this, it has like emojis that you can add to the book of like, oh, this is how I felt about it. However, I did notice that all of them were like positive. There were no emojis that were like, I thought this book was boring, which is what I would have put on this book. And then it has you give like a more in-depth like tagging of like what you liked about the book, like what parts of the book did you think were successful and how would you describe them. I think that that's super cool. Not only could it help people find books that they think are similar, it would also help the algorithm figure out which books are similar. I just wanted to mark the book as finished. I kind of didn't feel like learning all of these things right in a row, so it did seem a little overkill to me personally, but you'd rather have things that you don't use than things that you want, which is exactly what Goodreads has. The last thing I want to mention is that they have an AI chatbot called Scout, who I don't know how much is it helping you, is it giving you recommendations? I don't want to use it because I am really against generative AI. I think the whole point of the Fable app should be connecting people and not AI. So it seems antithetical to me that they would have this on there. Also the aura and other things of like giving you personality types based on your bookshelf. Pretty sure that's generated by AI. But the big thing is they did, I think, that aura at the end of 2024 to be kind of like that Spotify Wrapped thing. What happened is if you had a lot of books that weren't by white authors, it told you maybe you should try some white authors sometime, which is wild. And a lot of people were not cool with Fable because of this. And I also think that is not cool. I think I had seen a good amount of stuff of them being like, oh, we don't want to do that anymore, but it is really discouraging to me that I am seeing AI continuing to be in the app. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time on Fable, figuring out a couple more things, and then we will move on to our next guy. All right, it's time to give you my last Fable update. So the last thing I wanted to look at was the actual book page itself. It's going to have the book, it's going to have the average rating like on top of the book cover. Why? It has some genre tags, and depending on the book, it may only have one tag. Then you scroll down and there are tabs. So there's the About tab. So that is going to show you how many of the friends that you have marked this book on their shelves. And to see any of their reviews, like you have to go in to the section of how many of your friends did it. You can't click on their name. You have to click on the tiny number to see their review. One of the main reasons I would be on a social media app for books is to see what my friends thought of the books. So I think it was kind of strange that it took me a minute to actually find that it does link to somebody's review. So further down on the About, it'll give you the publisher synopsis. And then a very cool feature is that it has a content warning section that is blurred out, and you have to click on it to see those if you want them. That's great. For books that have romantic or sexual content, there is a thing that'll say, people have marked this as spicy. And the About tab will also have links to all of the other books by that author. Then you can go over to the Reviews tab. That is going to look kind of similar to Goodreads. It's going to have how often people have rated it within those stars. And this is where the tags come up. So the tags that people have voted for, you can do stuff for characters, plot,
writing style, setting, and maybe one other thing, and you can do all of the different tags. The more I've thought about it, I've actually looked back at it. I think there's a couple more options than I kind of gave it credit for, but as a person who like writes a long form review for every single book, I don't like having to choose somebody else's words. And you obviously have the option to not use those tags. That's fine. And then you scroll and it gets to the reviews, and you cannot find your friend's reviews in the reviews category, which I think is dumb. There's a couple of different ways that you can sort them. It's like, I think it's most popular, most recent, low to high, and high to low. And like maybe they're trying to distance themselves from Goodreads or whatever, but I think that the thing that you should be looking for is whether your friends liked it or not what the number one most liked review is. Because I'll tell you, most of the number one liked reviews are going to be just because this is a popular person, or it's a 5-star review, or it's a 1-star review. I don't know. That's just me. Then there are a couple other tabs. There is the posts tab, which has a feed of posts that people have made where they have tagged this book. There is the similar tab, which has book recommendations if you liked this. However, I did notice other V.E. Schwab books are in that. And I think that when you are recommending books to a person, especially if you have already showed in the About tab, this is their other books, you should not be recommending books that are by the same author. I think that that is a cop-out. It's cheating. They have the clubs tab where you can see if there are clubs online that are reading this book. That's probably only going to be a thing with very popular books that came out very recently. What comes to mind about my whole tagging problem is that I do not like buying pre-made journals. I liked bullet journaling for so long because I could make it exactly what I wanted it to. I don't like built out templates of stuff. I want to make my own thing so that I can make it exactly what I need it to be. That's why I don't use other people's spreadsheets. I make a thing for myself. And if other people want to use what I make, that's why I have my Etsy where you can buy my spreadsheet. I'm not intending that to be perfect for anybody else. Overall, I like the user interface. I don't love that it's not also a website, but that you have to use the website to do all of the features of Fable. They literally have a pop-up that apologizes, saying, we know it's also annoying. Maybe that's something that they're working on in the future. I don't like typing a review on my phone. I feel like were I to continue to use Fable, would I even bother writing the full review? Maybe I'd write a couple sentences and put the tags on there, but I don't like doing that. One of the major reasons I write book reviews is for me in the future to have an idea of what I was thinking in the moment. The reason I would continue to use Fable is to participate in book clubs. I think that the system that they have up there is good. I think the amount of notifications I'm getting is good, though I do think there are some critiques. I 100% understand why the people who love Fable really enjoy it. The way that it is trying to integrate different parts of the bookish internet all into one place. It's combining Goodreads, book Twitter, and Discord book clubs all into one place. And I think that that's good. I had a vaguely positive experience with Fable. It is not going to replace Goodreads for me for a couple of the reasons that I have talked about, and I am ready to try something else out. So I am going to be trying out Storygraph.
Hello. I have not done this in a long time, but I'm going to give you my update while I am cooking. I have been testing out Storygraph for a couple of days now. I have some stuff to discuss. And while I'm doing that, I am going to be making a jerk chicken recipe. I tried this for the first time a couple of days ago. I think it was a big success. Austin and I had it and we really liked it. And I just had leftover stuff, so I'm just gonna make it again. First off, about Storygraph. Let me compare it to Fable. Storygraph is an indie-owned website. It appears that there are only 3 employees at Storygraph, period, including the founder. So it is indie-owned. I just found out that Fable is not indie-owned anymore, because 1 month ago, as of filming this, it was bought out by Everand, which is a Audible alternative. I've heard a lot of people saying that there are a lot of changes that Everand has been making that has made them cancel their subscription. I wonder if Fable is going to start changing for the worse if people have noticed changes for the worse by their parent company. this is still an independently owned venture and seems to be a very small team, if that's something that you were looking for specifically. The first thing that I had to do was do my Goodreads import again. At first, I was negative about this because on Fable, all you had to do was put in your Goodreads account and it would link it. And it did it for you. It took a couple minutes, but it sorted it out for you. And as I mentioned before, it was not entirely accurate. So on Storygraph, you have to go on the Goodreads export page, download a CSV file of your page, and then import it into Storygraph. I could not personally get my Goodreads to do that on my phone. I tried doing it on the app and I tried doing it on my browser. The browser would not let me enter desktop mode. So I think if you could get into desktop mode, it might be able to take you there. I don't know. But it was just an extra step in the process, which sucked. So I was like, oh, this isn't as good. This isn't as seamless. But then Storygraph surprised me. You can customize what your import looks like. Let me preheat the oven. Forgot to do that. That's very important. So on Goodreads, you have exclusive shelves and inclusive shelves. All of these other websites that I use have some sort of DNF exclusive shelf built into them, but they don't know what to do with my extra TBR shelf that I have. So Storygraph, it finds that you have extra exclusive shelves and asks, where would you like us to send this? Where Fable messed up is it added my secondary TBR to my red shelf, despite me not having any red dates on there. I was able to manually select which one I wanted to add it to. And if you decide not to map it to any of the exclusive shelves that Storygraph comes with, it can make it no longer an exclusive shelf, which I think that is a huge plus, and it understands that not everything is going to be one-to-one. I might just dump this whole thing in there and have to get a new one going on the grocery list. The point against Storygraph that Fable does have is it does not import your Goodreads friends. I have been entirely reliant on going on people's Instagram pages and adding them on Storygraph. So I have a couple of friends on here. Actually, before I go on, I should probably talk about, I have used Storygraph in the past. Storygraph has a feature that is pretty unique to it. You can create pages for reading challenges. Stuff like the buzzword reading challenge is what I have used Storygraph for in the past. You can link all of the challenges in the community. Anybody, I believe, can add books to those challenges so you know what books will qualify for each of those things. So that is our little mixture. I can't tell if you can see it. Oh, I almost spilled that everywhere. But I'm just going to stir this with my guy. The next thing I'll talk about, so the homepage that you get on both the app and the website is your shelves. It'll have like your want to read shelf and your read shelf, and it'll randomly show you a couple books from each. Don't really know why. It'll show your current reads off to the side, and then it'll show like a popular section of a couple popular books that week, and then also some giveaways that they have. So I don't think that this homepage is particularly useful. Like, yes, your current read should be the number one thing that you see, but I guess I don't really understand what showing random things off of my shelves would help with. It's just a fairly small page. It doesn't have a lot of other things going on. But the main thing that Storygraph like advertises about and that people talk about on Storygraph is that it shows you stats. And Goodreads stats are pretty lame. As a person who makes my own spreadsheet of my books and gets literally hundreds of graphs for a year of books, I think that the Storygraph graphs are simply not enough graphs. The number one thing that Storygraph is asking you for when you're talking about a book is these moods. Here's the list of what the moods are. I think there's like 15 to 20 of them, and that's it. Everything else is like objective to the book. A couple of things are personal for you, but here are all the graphs that it gives you. The moods of the book, the genres of the book. Is it fiction or nonfiction? What is the pace of the book? What format did you read it in? Which it does not ask you that. It expects you to have picked the correct edition of the book as stored on Storygraph. Gotta wash our hands. So I'm gonna wait for that to finish preheating. That'll go in, and I'm gonna make some rice. But anyway, they put a huge emphasis on these moods. I don't know, I just don't love all of these graphs. It doesn't give you combo graphs, but if you use Storygraph Pro, you can make your own custom graphs. I don't know what the custom graphs are gonna look like because I am not gonna pay for this. I guess I don't see the relevance of all of these graphs. I don't think that these are the most interesting ways that this data can be viewed, and I also don't think that they are pulling the most interesting things about a book. I don't think whether a book is fast or slow or medium paced has ever stopped me from picking up a book. Wouldn't most books be, quote, medium paced? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me why that is one of the number one things that they're focusing on. And maybe that's me being particular. But when your very title of your website is Storygraph, I expect more than maybe 10 graphs that wouldn't take me that long to make. You'll notice that the moods look a lot like tagging that they do with characters, plot, writing, blah, blah, blah. I think unfairly, I complained that Fable didn't have enough choices. This is all you have with Storygraph. There are a couple of questions about like the characters, but like it asks you nothing about the plot of the book. I've gone from something that I didn't think was nuanced enough to something that doesn't get me anywhere near as close as I would like to tag. And I just wish they were going for more, because the whole thing of Storygraph, like their little tagline, they say life is too short to read books you won't like. The whole point of the moods and all of these questions that you answer once you review a book is specifically for you when you go on the page of a book to eliminate if you don't want to read the book. And I don't think the vibes of a book are enough to tell me if I want to read a book. I do, however, really, really like that you can do all of the graphs that they give you by year and month. So you can have a breakdown of your stats for every single month or whatever. That is great, perfect. I do that myself with my spreadsheet. So that is going to go in for 50 minutes, 50, and I'm gonna make some rice. That's gonna take like 30 minutes. Next up, I'm gonna talk about how you can interact with your own books. So when you're doing currently reading, you can add updates. I do not think that it broadcasts to your friends your progress update on a book like Goodreads does. I like seeing my friends' Goodreads updates on books. It's almost like a reading vlog, which is something I love consuming. I love seeing people's thoughts evolve over the course of a book. Really, absolutely ballparking the rice right now. But the number one thing is that you can mark what page you're on. Maybe that goes out to other people, but your text updates about a book while you're reading it do not go out to other people. It is entirely private to yourself. I want to know what other people are up to. That's fun. You can't do it within the like currently reading section of your homepage. When you click on it, it'll send you to the book's individual page and you will do track progress like up in the corner. It's not that deep, but that's a function I liked from Goodreads. And what I have to do while reviewing all of these websites is realizing that these websites, number one, cannot do exactly what Goodreads is doing without getting sued, and number two, aren't necessarily trying to be exactly like Goodreads. And I think what I'm noticing is that Fable is trying to be more community-based, more social media than Goodreads is, because it's kind of incorporating book Twitter, and Storygraph is trying to be less social. It's more using the friends function for you to find more books that you'd like, rather than finding out what your friends are up to. On the community tab, there is the news feed, which is where you can see people's updates. You basically only see people adding stuff to their want to read, DNF, read shelves or whatever. And it'll say, this person marked this as finished. And it'll give you the star rating, very tiny, and the tags that they give it, again, tiny. And then there's a thing to say, see full review. And I'm like, I feel like you're not highlighting the important part I'd want to see about that. I want to see what's their star rating, what's their review. I don't like that they're hiding your friend reviews, and this is exactly what we saw with Fable. Again, other things in the community tab. Buddy reads, read-alongs, and book clubs. They all function very similarly. And some people are using them to be the same thing, I'm noticing. You can just scroll through buddy reads and read-alongs it does not seem that you can scroll through book clubs. Either this is a brand new function to the website and it just isn't pulling up, or you have to be specifically invited to a book club to see the book club. The good thing I did see is that on the individual pages for the books, there is a link to see if there are any buddy reads, read-alongs, or book clubs reading that book at this moment. The last thing on the community tab is the similar readers tab. I would assume it would try to scrub your library and find you new people to follow. But from what I can see, I don't think it's doing a very good job of actually matching you with people who read the same books as you. I also don't think it comes up with the same people every time, so that's good. But that also means I don't really know why they're doing what they are. Like, the first person that popped up for me was a person who reads primarily like historical fiction, which is one of the genres that I personally read the least, because they read things that are dark, and that's one of my number one tags. I don't think the moods are so much so important, as I would want to find people who are picking up pretty similar books to me so that I can find if those people had the same opinions of those books as me. And we can find if we had similar fantasy tastes or romance tastes or whatever. Goodreads, on a very basic level, can tell you how much compatibility you have with people based on the ratings that you gave books. Not saying that these people needed the same thing, but I don't understand why the moods is what we're pushing rather than having similar libraries. Oh, one other good thing that I noticed, they do have an auto shelf that they've made for you that is your 5-star reads. So that's really useful. Maybe 5-star reads is how they were matching me with other people. But last thing I'll say in this clip is that I think the UI looks kind of unprofessional. I don't like the look of the website. It looks very much first draft proof of concept. It does not look like a finished product like I think Fable does. I'll get back to you with some other thoughts. We'll talk about the individual book pages, and we'll talk about anything else unique that I find about Storygraph.
It's a rainy day, but let's talk about Storygraph anyways. Let's talk about Storygraph's book page. So we've got our normal stuff. We've got like our star rating, we've got the information about the book, the different tags that you have on the book. I did find a feature that I did not know about. So you can actually mark a book as up next on your TBR. But I think that's a really interesting feature. I'm a person who does plan out my next read, so I actually would know what it is, but I don't know how helpful that would be compared to just, I type in the book and say I'm currently reading it. Then there is a section called Reader Match that is with AI. So you can turn on Reader Match and it's going to try reading your profile, comparing it to reviews of the book to see if it's going to be for you. I guess it's good that this is a turn on function because a lot of people aren't going to want to use AI like me. So if you're looking for a website that does not use AI at all, Storygraph has AI as well. It's at least a function that you do not have to turn on. Other than the normal information of people who liked this book also like this book, I don't know how much more information Storygraph actually gets out of you for you to be able to say, yeah, this book would probably be a good match for you. I'm just thinking of how I'm a reader who reads all different types of books and books that have different types of moods, that when I see this, I'm like, okay, is it gonna tell me that I like every book? But I'm not gonna turn it on because I don't wanna use AI. There's also a bunch of tags, so the different moods that people have attached to this book, you can see what percentage of users have selected that tag. Then you can see all of these like polls on the book that people fill out when they finish it. Is it medium paced, or so it's asking if it's more plot based or character based, and it has that being a binary, but you can say like it's complicated or whatever. But you can see how many of your friends have reviewed it or shelved it. You do have to click to see their reviews, just like you have to do with the community reviews. It also has content warnings on there, and it actually goes into pretty significant detail. Major trigger warnings, like medium and minor, and it'll give you the most popular suggestions for all of them. But then you can also look at every single tag anyone has ever done with the content warnings, and they seem to be pretty thorough. So if that's something you're looking for, there you go. I'll also go into the challenge tabs. You have like how many books you want to read in that year, but you can also add a page and or an hours goal, which if you're an audiobook listener, I think that's really good. Or if you're someone who reads like a lot of long books, you can add a new challenge and you can either go with one that's already made. They have a couple that have been made by Storygraph themselves, and then you can search through the community for different challenges. And there are a bunch of like categories, such as like tackle your TBR, like reading diversely, reading based on geography or something like that. Those are all different tags that you can look through and find challenges that are in that category, which I think is super useful. And you can also make your own challenge. And I really like that the whole idea of the challenges here is that you have a prompt or a category and people can just put books in there. I already talked about that before, but I think that is simply the best way to do this. Goodreads, while filming this video, did the update that was very, very minor. And one of the things that it did was it wanted to add to the reading challenges. And then the new thing is that on some of their listicles that they post, there will now be a reading challenge where if you read one of these books, presumably, that are on this list of like 100 books within the next couple of months, you'll get a little badge on your thing. And I don't like when reading challenges are just read a specific book. I'm going to tell you what you should read. At least with these challenges, they do seem to only be on huge lists. So there's should be something you're looking for. But like, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth that Amazon, which is the major retailer, is now telling you what books to read. And it makes me think that they're just sponsored positions. I don't think they are, and I do think that Goodreads like says when articles are sponsored, but like still. And then there's also a giveaways tab, which is very similar to Goodreads. So what are my thoughts on Storygraph? There are some things I really like about it that I would love for them to go into more detail. Like I feel like this is a starting point that I would love for them to jump off of. Storygraph is pushing that it's about statistics, and as someone who loves stats, has built out a huge spreadsheet, I just don't think it's doing enough for me personally. And if you're someone who doesn't care to have a huge spreadsheet like me, but likes seeing pretty graphs, if you're not neurotic like me, you know, this could be something that really works for some people. And I do think a lot of the features that Storygraph has, just other places should just have it to begin with. I just want Storygraph to go into more depth. I think that might be a function of Storygraph Plus, which I am not going to get for this video, so that could be something that you look into yourself. Now we are going to go to our third Goodreads alternative. Hello, I have been looking at Pagebound. I found out about this website from Instagram Reels. I had been getting a couple of posts from the creators of the website. Here's the thing about Pagebound. It is still under construction. Fable and Storybound have each been around for like a couple of years now. Pagebound did not launch that long ago. So it is clear from using the website that there is more that they want to do with it. And part of them not being done with it is they do not yet have an app. They want to have an app, that is the plan. It is just a website. So this is what it looks like. It looks really cute. I think it's like kind of like that style of art that would be on like notebooks and stuff that was supposed to look like doodly and everything. I think it's very cute and different. Fable feels almost like a chicer looking social media app that already exists. And this one actually looks like it's kind of got its own visual identity, which I like. You upload your Goodreads just like you do on Fable. So this is an import that you can't customize on like Storygraph. And when you load up your page, you make a little profile for yourself. So it doesn't appear at this point that you can add an image. You can pick from a series of little drawn avatars. If this website is going to get bigger, I would hope that they would make something so you could like customize it yourself, just to make it so that there's a million possibilities and everyone could have a unique avatar. The homepage when you start on Pagebound is looking at your current reads. Instead of having just an update feature, you can post in the forum. Yes. So Pagebound is designed to be a combination between Goodreads and Reddit, which I think is very interesting. And this actually might make people want to come here instead of Goodreads because it is not following the exact same Goodreads format. Like, it's doing something a little bit different. Once you scroll down, it'll give you a bunch of posts from forums on books that you've read. It is not books that you've loved. It is not people that you are friends with. I have friended a couple of people on Pagebound now, and I'm wondering if I was friends with more people, if their posts would show up. I have scrolled through a lot. Some of them are want to read as well, and I have not seen anything from friends. So that's the thing, is that when you're posting an update, you're not really necessarily posting to your friends. You're posting to the people who are talking about that book, for good or for ill, if people are liking the book or not. You can comment on anyone's updates, or you can upvote people's things. So there are two different writing functions, just like on Goodreads, how there's the updates and the reviews. This one has the forum and the reviews, but all of the updates that I seem to be getting in my feed, I do not know if it is because I do not have many friends and they just aren't showing up, or what the deal is, but I am only seeing random forum posts in my feed. That's kind of weird. I don't necessarily want to see random people. Maybe if there were like specific books that I'd love to bookmark and see posts from the forum, like maybe I could follow a book's forum. While we're on the topic of forums and reviews, we'll do the individual page for a book. You get all of the normal information you get about the book in the order that you would expect it to. But one thing that they're doing that also I'm seeing Fable do this, I think, is emojis. So when you post a review, you can pick emojis for the book, and whatever the most popular emojis are going to go to the top of the book page. So it's going to be up there with the star review and everything, which I think is pretty interesting. It seems to be that you can pick any emoji and attach it to there, and instead of just tying it to your review, they are actually putting it on the top of the book, and that will actually come into play later. They have activity from people you follow, so again, you have to click to a whole page to see your friends' reviews. And I don't know why all three of these websites that I've tried are hiding your friends' reviews. Why don't you want me to see them? If you go into activity from people I follow, you can find who has shelved it where. But then you have to go back and go to the review section and click a thing that says only people I follow for you to be able to find your friends' reviews. This is blowing my mind that people who are designing these websites don't find that part important. The review section is very normal, but then there is the forum section, which is basically just community updates. There doesn't seem to be a way for you to find your friends' posts on there, but you can sort these by like progress through the book or the most upvotes. After that, there is community recommendations if you liked this book. That is individual people have put on here that you would probably like this book, and people can vote, and the top voted books will be there. And I think that is a really great way to do it. I would like a list that's algorithmically generated, as well as this community recommendation page. I don't know how different they would end up being, but I think it would be interesting to see what the differences are. And at the bottom, just like on Goodreads, there is lists that feature this book. I'm going to talk about my profile real quick. So you pull up your profile. As with the other two websites here, all three of them have this idea where you can pin 5-ish books that you really like as your taste. And this is how on a different part of the website, they will try to connect you with other similar readers. You've got your activity, so you can see what you've done, and it has saved the quests that you've joined. We'll talk about that in a minute. The lists that you've made, and they also have a stats page, which I actually haven't looked at yet. Right now, it's achievements and your reading challenge. So the reading challenge is just books, and the achievements, there is the achievements as like the badges you can get on quests. I'll talk about that in a second, and your general badge as a Pagebound user. So at the top, when you have your following followers, the other thing that's next to that is points. The more that you interact on Pagebound, the more points you get. So I've gotten 3 points for leaving a comment. I got 5 points for setting my yearly goal. I got a point for getting a like on one of my reviews. And so all of these points accumulate to a badge. So right now I have over 100 points, and that has gotten me to level 2. So that's all that stats is right now. I would assume, because it's called stats, that in the future there will be more things there. But again, this website is very much under development. Actually, it's so much under development that I have had a problem with load times on the website. Sometimes when I load a new page, it'll do this almost like
brick thing where like you have to put your cursor over the area so it like clears the screen. And I want to be the least judgmental that I can about this website when I do find problems like that, because it's literally 2 people. I want to talk about the library because there's a couple things that are unique. So on Storygraph, there is a function where you can put what your next like 5-ish books are going to be, so you can like streamline that when you're adding a new book that you're reading. This is one of my favorite things that a freaking website has done. You can schedule your TBR ahead of time, or you can keep track of new releases. So on the library page, there's a books tab where it's just like normal Goodreads, my shelf section. On the plan section, you can bookmark books that you'd like to read in that month or upcoming releases for that month. But I would like to say, very cool of Pagebound, they have an extra exclusive shelf. They have a paused shelf. So books that you have soft DNF'd that you want to come back to. Honestly, if that was something that was included on other websites, I would be a little bit more inclined to DNF because it has that. Goodreads is entirely customizable what your shelves are, so I could do that for myself, but I do really like that it's built into the system. I'll go through the Discover page. There is 4 different tabs. There's books, people, quests, and lists. So books has like the most TBR this week, the most currently reading, and popular this week. I don't know what the popular this week means. Is that the most marked as read this week? Is it the most interacted with at all this week? I'm not really sure. It does have this little function where you can browse by emoji. I told you the emojis would come back. So you can literally just put in an emoji and something will come up. I looked at Brain before and it just shows you a bunch of random books. It does pop up with different books every single time that have been tagged as having the brain emoji. You can find people and it'll show you the people who have the most matching taste with you, and I believe it's just based on the books that you put as your taste. It has a percentage of how much overlap people have with your library. And then quests are, I would say, the most unique feature. They have things called main quests and side quests. Some people have created a list of books that fall under a certain category. And if you want to sign up for that quest, people can join the quest. They will get a badge if they have read a certain amount of books on the list. So unlike Storygraph, where they have the reading challenge function where it is you read a book within that category being built specifically for readathons, this is, hi, I'm a random person and I have selected 20 books that I think you should read. So the main quests are journeys with 30 plus books, and side quests are journeys with 10 to 15 books. The ones that pop up seem to be like the same ones over and over again, but I don't know how they're sorted. It seems like with the 30 book challenges, the main quests, if you've read 5 of the books, you get a bronze medal. If you've read 10, you get a silver. And if you've read 15, you get a gold. I think that this is a fun idea. One of the things that Pagebound is advertising itself is gamifying reading. So you interact more on the website, you get more points, blah, blah, blah. You get badges on your page if you complete all these different challenges and everything like that. So I think that that is good and definitely could make a habit of reading if something like that motivates you. I think that's it for right now. I'm gonna do a little bit more investigating to see if I can find anything unique and interesting about this, maybe some places for improvement, and I will get back to you. Hey, I've got more to talk about, and hopefully I'm gonna wrap up what I'm talking about with Pagebound here. I'll talk about the thing that I most recently talked about in the last clip, and that's the reading challenges that are called quests. So if you go to the place where the quests are, you can't create a quest. I don't know if I'm not high enough on the website yet, but I genuinely can't find a way to make a quest on this website. I would like it to be like a combination of Storygraph and this, where it's like, okay, here are the prompts that we want to do, and I want to hit a book that has this. I'm glad that these badges are based on not reading the entire list, but I think that there's a little bit more that we could do, and also I think it would be cool if it could be collaborative. But I have also noticed, it was harder for me to tell when I was doing all these websites back to back, but now that I've had a little bit of a break from this, is that there is not a book club function that an individual can make. The reading quests seem to be the closest thing to a book club that you can do. However, that leads us into our next talking point. The last major part of the website I haven't talked about yet is the Pagebound Club.
So the discuss page is the last tab of Pagebound. What comes up is Pagebound Club, which you can go to club, and that is where you can talk about things that are book related, but not specific to any one book. For example, the first things that come up on the Pagebound Club: authors similar to S.A. Cosby, books like the TV show School Spirits, favorite book, ? Physical book trackers, and those are the newest ones. I've seen some people just doing, like, looking for recommendations, wanting to talk about a bookish thing. I've also seen people, like, asking for different things on the website. For example, somebody mentioned that they added a book to, like, the community recommendations of a book. They didn't mean to do that, and so they wanted to take it down, and there's no option for you to edit that. It's a little bit of everything right now. The thing that I've noticed here, because this is based on Reddit, is that within the club, there is no subreddits. Each individual book has its own subreddit, and then you just go to the club, and it's literally anything. I would really like for it to branch out, to have more separated spaces for different things, like r/fantasy. Let's do, like, recommend me a book, general chat about the bookish community, talking about making bookish content. Further down on the discuss page, we have the read along. Every quarter, there are 5 books that are picked. With so many books, it can be hard to know where the conversation is happening. Each season, we feature 5 books, so if you're looking to chat, this is a great place to start. Earn a special badge for finishing a read-along and posting or commenting in the forum. Already read one of our books? Post or comment during the read-along to earn your badge. Next season selection will be announced 1 month before the current read-along ends. So right now, for June 1st to August 31st, the books are I'm Glad My Mom Died, 1984, The Poppy War, Remarkably Bright Creatures, and 7 Days in June. I have read 4 out of the 5 of those books. The upcoming fall one is A Dowry of Blood, Blood Over Brighthaven, Tender as the Flesh, Spell Shop, and Don't Let the Forest In, which I've read all but Don't Let the Forest In, which I am interested in. And all of these I have read at least 3 of each of the quarter's books. And from what I saw, it appears to be books that were TBR'd by a ton of people. There doesn't seem to be any voting function, but it does seem to be based on the data of a good amount of people. And I'm noticing that I'm seeing, like, a lot of books with something in common. I do see in winter 2025, they picked 4 books that are winter specific. So I'm wondering how they're picking these, and I would have liked to see different genres appear for all of them. Particularly fall 2025 seems very limited in the genres that it's talking about. It's almost all, like, gothic-y, fantasy, speculative adjacent. And as a person who loves those books, and that's my favorite selection of these, if you could do something more along the lines of, I know, like, book boxes specifically try to have a mix of genres in their thing. Just an idea. And then at the bottom, there's just more forum posts. So there's my books, which it just gives you random updates from people. There's no sorting of random books that you have shelved. There's all books, which is just all posts done recently, and club posts, which is the exact same thing as going to the Pagebound Club at the top. So I don't actually understand why these are separate sections if they're the exact same thing. It's 2 different locations, same content. There's one thing that I missed out on the Discover tab, and that is the lists section, which I do think is very cool. So this is kind of the take on Listopia from Goodreads. There's a button for me to create a list. Let's pick the most popular one. One and done fantasy, standalone fantasy. These are tagged with emojis. People can upvote the list or downvote. I haven't mentioned, you can downvote things here. On Goodreads, you can vote on what books you would like to see raised up on the list, but this is just a person's own individual list that they have made, and you can look at it. And I can see on the one and done fantasy, there are 60 books, and it says I have 42% overlap. So you can create your own list, and you can also bookmark other people's lists for later. I would like to raise you this. Are these lists not extremely similar to quests? Last time I told you that I wanted to look into what the read-along function was. It is people who have marked where they are in the book. It is not actually, oh, there is an organized read-along of this book happening. But that means that Pagebound does not have a formal way for you to have a book club. It's kind of using the forums to have everybody who has posted about this book be your book club. Look, I'm reading a book that I'm really enjoying right now. I decided to look at the Pagebound page for this, and I just got to see some people being like, oh my god, this book is amazing, and some people being like, oh my god, this book is awful. And I didn't like how reading all of those polarizing thoughts from just people just behind a screen felt, because it made me question how I was feeling about the book, which stressed me out. And the last thing I want to talk about is I did end up friending a couple of more people on here so I could try to see what the main page looks like and what different pages look like when you do have friends on there. Basically what you see when you get to these pages is that the posts on forum are in blue, comments on like posts or lists are in orange, adding a book to your TBR, finishing a book, leaving a review, any of that is pink. But what I noticed, the reason why I wasn't seeing my friends is because there is no visual identifier that the person who did this is your friend. The only thing that it does is when it is a random person, it'll say post from the this book forum. I think that these could be different columns. There could be maybe like a tab difference, or there's a profile picture of the person if they are your friend, and if they don't, there's not. Or maybe different colors. I don't understand why the colors are different types of things. But the very last thing that I want to mention that I did not find on Pagebound, that I didn't notice it until I was trying to compile stuff for what I'll make for the outro, Pagebound does not have a content warning function. Fable and Storygraph, both on the individual page of the book, will have a featured function where you can click on to see the content warnings. And these are crowdsourced, and I think that's a very good thing. Pagebound does not have that at all. Content warnings is something you need very regularly. Maybe Pagebound isn't ready for you yet.
Okay, it's been like 30 minutes and I found two things about Pagebound that I want to mention because both of them are holes that I think they should fix. Number one, I was trying to find a book that a lot of people would have reviewed and stuff, so I just typed in Hunger Games. I typed in Hunger Games, not the Hunger Games, Hunger Games. It came up with a different entry for the Hunger Games, like maybe a user submitted, but it was like different versions of the Hunger Games that weren't the Hunger Games, including like the third one down was like an Italian version of the Hunger Games. It took me typing in for it to pop up. So I think that maybe could be improved. And the other thing that I realized is that Pagebound actually doesn't have a series function. So like when you're on any of these other websites, it'll say The Hunger Games #1, and you can click on that and you can see the series in order. Or on Fable and on Goodreads, if you scroll to the bottom of the page, they'll just have the series in order and you don't actually have to look that up. Pagebound does not even have a link for where the series are.
The one thing that I did discover about Pagebound in the interim is that the only way to submit a quest is to email Pagebound with your list and they will review it to put it onto the website. I forgot to show you what reviewing looks like on Pagebound. This is the most basic reviewing page of all three of our new websites. Marking a book as finished and adding shelves to it is separate. And then the reviewing, you have the ability to rate it on a 5-star scale in half stars. Your overall score, your enjoyment, the quality of the book, the characters, the plot. You can add 3 emojis and then you just give your review. Alrighty, I'm ready to give you my outro, final thoughts, and who I think all of these are for. I have a bunch of different categories that I have made that I am going to rate all of these in. And I am going to include Goodreads in this to see how I feel about all of these apps. Before I go into my scoring of all of these, let me tell you what all of these 3 alternatives have in common. All of them are not owned by Amazon. All of them were founded or co-founded by women of color. All of them allow you to do at least half stars. All of them have more inputs for your review than Goodreads does. All of them allow you to import from Goodreads. And all of them have a way for you to subscribe or monetarily support the website. Fable has a $6 monthly subscription or $4.17 per month for a full year subscription. You get extra graphs, notifications. It says it's ad-free, even though I haven't noticed any ads on the app, I don't know. And there is a free trial available. Storygraph is very similar. It's $5 a month for a subscription, or again, $4.17 a month for that annual. The main thing that they're pushing is customizable accessible graphs, which seems great, and there is a free trial. Pagebound, when I was filming this in July, had one page that you could either subscribe or give a one-time donation. They had two tiers. There was a $5 tier and a $10 tier monthly. In the last week or so, they have debuted Pagebound Royalty, which is only their $10 tier. So they have gotten rid of the $5 tier and kept the one-time and $10. And the $10 tier allows you to get like a couple extra badges on your profile. It allows you to have the roadmap of what they're hoping to add to the app in the future. And you get access to new features. Like the people who are at the $10 tier were able to beta test the app. I'm going to be rating these all on a 5-star scale, as is appropriate. And all of these are going to be rated based on my own personal enjoyment of all of these things. For the Goodreads import, Fable does not do a good job. Pagebound does exactly what I'd expect. And Storygraph blew it out of the water. Even though there's a little bit of legwork that you have to do, I think allowing you to customize what the import looks like is essential. For UI and design, I do not like how Storygraph looks. I think Pagebound is good, but there's definitely some things wanting, like why doesn't it take up the whole web page? I would like more ability to customize what my little profile is going to look like. I think Pagebound is, bare minimum what I would expect from UI. And then Fable, I think, kind of has it down pat. Everything looks very clean and nice here. I think the way that it looks actually does invite you to come back to the app. Then we have the individual book pages. There are a couple things that Pagebound has missing. Fable and Storygraph, I really love that they have the content warnings. I think that's super duper important. And they do have all of the necessary information about the book, bare minimum to me. But I do want to give Goodreads the point for talking about your friends' reviews. Then we have the shelves themselves. Storygraph and Fable are doing the bare minimum. Pagebound, I think, has some fun added stuff that nobody else has. And Goodreads is 100% fully customizable in a way that none of the rest of them are. So point to Goodreads. For the homepage, I don't like Storygraph's homepage at all. I don't think it makes 100% sense. For Pagebound, I do like it to begin with, but I do have the problems of just random people's stuff popping up. And I think Fable and Goodreads are what I'm looking for. I want updates from my friends. For the profile, I don't think Pagebound has a ton going for it. Goodreads and Storygraph do exactly what I think they're going to do, and Fable, I think, is the most appealing. For reviewing, as much as I had a couple qualms with how Fable and Storygraph were doing their stuff, I do have to give them points for allowing the reader to put more information in. I just can't give them a 5-star because I want even more. The other two, I think, are bare minimum. For the stats and information pages, Pagebound and Goodreads give you nothing. Fable gives what I consider to be the bare minimum, and Storygraph does give you more, even though I want more. For community features, Storygraph is not trying to be a community space, so it really doesn't have anything, and that is not what I'm looking for personally. Pagebound also, I think I was a little bit too inundated with what strangers are doing, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of features for you to create your own niche of people on Pagebound. It's wanting you to interact with the general Pagebound public. Fable and Goodreads, to me, have what I would expect. For book clubs and buddy reads, I think Fable is doing exactly what it should. This is far and away the best way to make a book club on any of these apps. Storygraph, I think, is bare minimum. Goodreads, the book club section, is extremely neglected, and Pagebound does not have a way for you to create your own book club. We have AI usage. Goodreads and Pagebound do not use AI. And Fable and Storygraph both have AI options that you can opt out of. If you don't want to use them, you don't have to. I also had intuitiveness here. Does it seem that things are where they're supposed to be? I think that this might be what UX is. I think that Goodreads and Fable are the most intuitive, and Storygraph and Pagebound, there were several times where I'm like, I don't know where this feature is. I definitely have those moments with Fable and Goodreads, not the same that I have with the other two. I also have, lastly, a unique features category. I was gonna give them all the same, and then I realized that there are some that I feel like I could live without and some that I can't. Each of these apps has something that I think should be mandatory for all these to have in order for them to be perfect. For Fable, I love the ebook and book club stuff. For Storygraph, I love the reading challenge stuff. For Pagebound, I love that they are having people have a say in what sort of recommendations go on a page, and that they have TBR planning stuff. But Goodreads, to me, does have that edge. I really love the infrastructure that they have behind showing you new releases, the listicles that they have out all the time. And also, they have a way for you to sort your shelves in a way that no other app does, and I use this constantly. So I am not going to be convinced away from using Goodreads. But according to our scores, I ended up giving Pagebound a 2.7, I gave Storygraph a 3, and I gave Fable and Goodreads a 3.4. I think Fable does some things that Goodreads doesn't, and I think Goodreads does some stuff that Fable doesn't. Fable is the only one of these that I have even tried using outside of the experiment. So now what you've all been waiting for, I am going to tell you who I think each of these is for. I think Fable is for people who like book Twitter or Bookstagram. I think they're for people who love a digital book club, for people who want to form a reading habit, people who love ebooks, people who want quarter stars, and people who want to have as detailed a review as possible. It is not for people who are against any sort of AI incorporation. It is not for people who are wanting an indie-owned website, and it is not for people who want to use it on browser. Storygraph is for people who want less social media in their life and who are wanting more of a personal reading experience. It is for people who want an indie-owned website. It's for people who want reading stats and for readathon participants. Storygraph is not for people against any sort of AI incorporation. It's not for people who are wanting like the super detailed stats. And it's not for those people who are living for the aesthetic, trying to make their reading life super aesthetic. It's not going to happen here. For Pagebound, we're going to have a lot of positives and a lot of negatives because this is still being worked on. I am giving that grace to these people. I think they are on the right track. Pagebound is 100% for Reddit users. It is for people who want an indie-owned website. It is for people who are against AI incorporation. It is for people who want to gamify the reading experience and see a score climb. It is for people who pause books. It's for people who plan TBRs. It's not for people who need a finished product right now. From what I've seen, it's also not for people who don't have a Gmail. It is not for people who want detailed tagging of books before you read them. It's not for people who need content warnings. It's not for people who want stats about their books. And it's not for people who want to make a book club. Hopefully, from doing all of this research, I have allowed you to find which of these would be for you if you would like to switch away from Goodreads. Let me know which of these seems like the best to you. I did a lot of criticism in this video, but I would like to say that it is coming from a place of constructive criticism that I think that these places can do better, and I like where they're going. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. If you don't have anything to say, I would love to know that you're here. Leave me a computer or website or app-related emoji down below. If you would like to find me anywhere, you can find me in the links in the description, including friending me on all of these websites. And if you'd like to see more videos from me, I have one coming every single week. You can subscribe to make sure it comes in your feed. Thank you so much for watching. This was a huge product to put together. I cannot believe that it is over. But again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.